The tires of Derek's SUV hummed along the cracked asphalt, winding deeper into the forest that locals called Black Hollow. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, thick and ancient, casting long shadows even in midday sun. "Dude, this place is way out there," Kevin said from the back seat, half laughing, half worried. He popped open another beer and leaned forward between the front seats. "How far till we get there, man?" Derek smirked behind the wheel. "Not much longer. Just another 20 minutes or so. Don't worry. You'll love it once we're there." Jake, sitting shotgun, looked out the window. "I didn't know Pennsylvania still had forests like this. It's like untouched, creepy untouched." "That's Black Hollow for you," Derek said casually. "Not a lot of hunters come out here. Locals say the forest doesn't like to be hunted." "What do you mean?" Emma asked, her tone teasing but curious. She sat next to Kevin in the back. Derek chuckled. "There's an old story. My granddad used to tell it. Hunters would go in, shoot game, and sometimes they wouldn't come back. Or worse, they came back wrong, shaken, silent. Never hunted again." Kevin snorted. "Come on, that's some Deliverance meets Blair Witch bullshit." Jake grinned. "So this is what? Some cabin in the woods weekend, complete with creepy-ass ghost stories." "Exactly," Derek said with a wink. "Beer, barbecue, and a little fear. What's life without a little danger, right?" They all laughed, but unease lingered under the humor. Outside, the trees thickened. The road turned to gravel, then dirt. Minutes later, the forest swallowed them whole. The hunting lodge stood in a clearing surrounded by dense pine and ash trees. The wood was dark, aged, sagging slightly under its own weight. Moss clung to the porch, and the windows were like eyes, half covered in grime. "Jesus," Emma muttered. "This place looks haunted already." "It's rustic," Derek offered. "It's a murder house," Kevin added with a grin. Still, they unpacked. Inside, the cabin was surprisingly intact. Dusty but furnished, with a stone fireplace, antlers on the walls, and a gun rack with an old hunting rifle still locked in place. A lingering mustiness mixed with pine. The silence around them was thick, pressing. That night, they started a fire in the stone pit out back. They grilled sausages and burgers, drank too much, and laughed until they couldn't feel the creeping cold from the forest anymore. Until the shadows grew darker, and the forest began to watch. By the time the sun dipped behind the black treetops, the group had built a solid fire out back behind the lodge. Jake played music off his phone, some classic rock barely audible over the crackling flames and laughter. Empty beer bottles clinked together on a tree stump turned into a makeshift table. Smoke and the rich scent of charred meat filled the cool night air. Emma leaned against a log, sipping slowly. "Okay, I'll admit, it's kinda peaceful out here." "Told you," Derek said, flipping a burger. "No cars, no sirens, no phones ringing, just you, your friends, and the great outdoors. And this mystical, soul-eating forest," Kevin added with a theatrical voice. "Come on, Derek, tell it again. What exactly is the legend?" Derek smirked but didn't look up. You want the real version, or the one that lets you sleep tonight? Jake chuckled, tossing a beer cap into the flames. Real, always real. Derek set the spatula down. The fire crackled louder for a moment, as if leaning in to listen. They say the forest feeds on hunters, not people passing through. Only those who spill blood in its soil. The locals stopped hunting here decades ago after too many went missing. Emma scoffed, though her eyes darted toward the tree line. Some say it's a curse, Derek continued, that the forest is alive, aware. Every deer, every rabbit, it's all part of it. If you take something from the woods, something comes to take it back. Balance. That's just animist folklore, Kevin said, waving his bottle. Nature spirits, blah blah. You're telling me this place punishes people for killing deer? Derek didn't answer. Jake stared into the fire. Kinda makes sense. This place feels different, like it's watching. No, Kevin said, standing up a little unsteadily. You guys are just drunk. That's all. Forest isn't alive. Spirits aren't real, and I'll prove it. Derek looked at him, suddenly serious. Kev, don't be an idiot. But Kevin was already moving toward the cabin. You said your granddad hunted here, right? That's why the lodge exists. There's a rifle inside. Let's go find Bambi. Emma stood, alarmed. Kevin, you're not seriously going to shoot something. Jake tried to grab his arm, but Kevin shrugged him off. Relax. I'll just take a look. Probably won't see a damn thing anyway. And even if I do, I'll show you nothing happens. Derek followed, slower. His smile had faded. Inside, the lodge felt colder now, like the fire's warmth had never touched it. Kevin pulled the rifle from the rack above the mantel. Still works? Derek hesitated, then nodded. It's loaded. Don't do anything stupid. But Kevin was already out the door. Jake and Emma followed reluctantly, stumbling through underbrush behind Kevin, who marched ahead like a drunken explorer. Derek trailed last, slower than the rest, almost like he knew where they were going. The forest beyond the fire pit was suffocating. Each step further from the lodge made the darkness feel heavier, more oppressive. Trees stood unnaturally still. No crickets, no wind, only breath and silence. Then, a rustle. Kevin froze. Shh. Something moved ahead. A low snort, then the crunch of leaves. A buck stepped into a shaft of moonlight, tall and regal, eyes glowing faintly. It stared directly at them. Or maybe at Kevin. Holy shit, Jake whispered. Let's just go back. Crack. The shot rang out like thunder. The buck jolted and collapsed in the underbrush with a dull thud. A few birds shrieked and fled into the night sky. Emma covered her mouth. Kevin, what the fuck? Kevin laughed nervously. See, no spirits, just dinner. But none of them moved. The deer was dead. Its eyes still open, glassy and almost human. They approached, and even Kevin looked suddenly sober. The body was heavy, already starting to stiffen. Blood soaked into the soil beneath it. "Let's drag it back," Kevin said, voice cracking. Jake shook his head. "We're too drunk. We'll break our backs. Leave it. Get it in the morning." "Or don't," Emma whispered. "Please." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Derek turned back. "Leave it. We should go." No one argued. They left the carcass in the dirt and walked back, the dark swallowing the buck and the path behind them. Back at the lodge, things felt wrong. Jake sat in front of the fire inside now, staring blankly. Kevin had sobered quickly and drank more to fight it. Emma sat on the couch, knees pulled up to her chest. No one talked. Even the fire seemed unsure of itself, flickering low, weakly, despite plenty of wood. Outside, the forest loomed. "You okay, Derek?" Emma asked finally. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Yeah, just tired." They went to bed early, though no one really slept. The silence outside was absolute. No wind, no birds, no life, just a darkness so thick it felt like it was crawling across the windows. Then, at 3:17 a.m., something screamed. Not an animal, not anything they had ever heard. It began as a low growl, like stone grinding against stone, then climbed into a high-pitched wail. Something wet and furious behind it. It echoed through the trees and into their bones. Kevin sat bolt upright in his bed. What the hell was that? Jake was already at the window. "I don't see anything. It came from the woods." Another scream, closer now. This time, it didn't echo. It whispered. It lingered. Emma was crying, clutching a blanket. "We should have left it. We should have left it." Derek stood in the hallway, perfectly still, staring at the front door. "I told you," he said softly. "I told you not to hunt here." The third scream came just before 4 a.m. By then, none of them were asleep. They sat gathered in the main room of the lodge, backs against the walls, eyes locked on the curtained windows. Outside, the forest had gone quiet again. Not peaceful, but expectant. Kevin gripped the rifle like a lifeline, his knuckles pale. Jake had a fire poker clutched in one hand. Emma was still shaking, her hoodie wrapped tight around her. Only Derek sat motionless. Calm. Too calm. Another sound came. Not a scream this time, but movement. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Something was walking through the woods. It wasn't a bear or a deer. It didn't move like any animal. It dragged something. Then, a soft thump on the porch. Kevin flinched, raising the rifle. What the fuck was that? Jake crept toward the window. Don't, Don't look. But it was too late. He peeked and saw it. A shape crouched just beyond the light from the porch lamp. Its body was long, twisted, almost skeletal. Not human, but close enough to make your brain scream in confusion. Antlers rose from its head, black and gnarled, like they were rotting. Its limbs moved in unnatural angles, like it had more joints than it should. And its eyes, they glowed. Not yellow, not red, but hollow. A faint white emptiness, like snow under moonlight. Jake staggered back. It's real. Oh God, it's real. Emma screamed as the thing let out a low, gurgling hiss. A wet, bubbling sound like lungs filled with swamp water. Then it disappeared. Into the trees again. Gone. Silence. Front doors locked, right? Kevin asked. Derek said nothing. Emma turned. Derek, did you know this would happen? He met her eyes and didn't blink. The forest takes what it's owed. What does that even mean? Jake yelled. Derek finally stood. It won't come in, not yet. But if it marked you, if you spilled blood, it won't stop. Kevin looked down at the rifle. The metal felt heavier now. We need to leave. Right now. Emma nodded quickly. Get in the SUV. Drive. I don't care where. Just go. They scrambled. Kevin clutched the rifle. Jake threw open the front door and froze. The deer. It had been dragged to the porch. Its body was torn wide open, entrails sprawled across the steps, but not eaten. No, displayed. And its eyes, they were missing. Emma threw up into the bushes. Jake turned pale as death. Kevin pushed past them. Into the car. Now. They bolted down the narrow dirt path. The SUV was parked 30 yards away. Too far, too exposed. But there was no choice. They ran. And the forest came alive. Branches twisted, wind howled from nowhere. And in the shadows, it moved. Something ran beside them. Fast. Silent. Emma screamed as she saw a shadow dart between trees. It's following us. It's playing with us. Jake tripped and fell face first. Kevin hauled him up as they reached the car. Derek didn't run. He walked. Calm. The rest piled in. Kevin jumped into the driver's seat, turning the key. Nothing. Dead. Jake swore. What the hell? It was working yesterday. Kevin popped the hood. Smoke. The battery was melted. Melted, like it had been cooked from the inside. Get back, Kevin shouted as the bushes near the edge of the road shivered. Not from wind, from something massive shifting within them. Go back to the cabin, Derek finally said, turning back. It can't take you if you're inside. Jake hesitated. Why should we trust you now? Because I'm the only reason you're still alive. Another shriek, louder, angrier. That decided it. They sprinted. Back to the lodge. Back to the false sense of safety. Inside, the fire had burned down to embers. Jake pushed a dresser in front of the door. Kevin checked the windows, locking them even though the glass wouldn't hold. Emma curled up in the corner, whispering to herself. And Derek. He sat again, hands on his knees, eyes closed. Jake turned on him. What is this place? What the hell is going on? Derek opened his eyes. It's not a legend. It's not a ghost story. It's real. My family's known for generations. He took a slow breath. This land, it needs blood. Not just any blood. New blood. Outsiders. Strangers. Every few years, the hunger comes back. And if it's not fed, it takes whoever it wants. Emma stared at him, horrified. You brought us here to die. Derek didn't answer. That was answer enough. Kevin raised the rifle. You son of a bitch. You knew we'd hunt. I didn't make you pull the trigger, Derek said quietly. The forest watched. It decided. Not me. Emma screamed and rushed at him, slapping and punching. Jake held her back, barely. Derek didn't fight back. I just survive, he whispered. That's the deal. One trip. Every time it wakes up. I bring new souls. The forest takes the rest. But it leaves me. You're insane, Jake spat. You're evil. The wind howled. And then the glass shattered. A branch, no, an arm, something black and bony, smashed through the living room window, clawing wildly. Emma screamed again. Kevin fired. The shot rang loud, but the thing didn't scream, didn't flinch. It simply pulled back. Gone again. Derek stood. It's time. For what? Jake asked. For the offering. The broken window stared into the lodge like an open eye. No one spoke for a long time. Only the wind answered, whistling through the jagged glass, cold and bitter. The thing outside had retreated into the trees, but not far. They could feel it. Waiting. Watching. Kevin lowered the rifle, his hands trembling. It's not scared. I shot it. It didn't even care. Emma slumped into a chair, face pale and wet with tears. Jake paced the room like a caged animal, eyes darting between the doors and windows. His shirt was torn, his knee bleeding from the fall earlier. Derek stood by the fireplace, staring into the embers. Tell us everything, Jake said suddenly. Now. No riddles, no creepy forest bullshit. What is this thing? Derek didn't turn around. It doesn't have a name, he said softly. Or if it does, it's older than words. Older than this forest. My great-grandfather built this lodge. He was the first to see it, to make the pact. Jake scoffed. What pact? The forest provides deer, water, timber. But it's alive, aware. It feeds like anything else. and sometimes it wakes up hungry. Kevin slammed the butt of the rifle on the floor. So your family just started feeding it people? Derek flinched. Not at first. At first they thought it was just bad luck. Hunters going missing. Strange tracks. Screams in the night. But it kept happening. And then my grandfather made the first offering. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. How? Derek finally turned to face them. His eyes looked hollow, like he hadn't slept in years. He brought his hunting party, said he found the best place for bucks. 5 went in, 1 came out. Jake's mouth dropped open. My grandfather, and after that, the forest slept. For 7 years. No screams, no missing people. But when it woke up again, he knew what had to be done. You're sick, Kevin spat. You brought us here to die. Derek looked at the floor. I didn't choose you, not really. But the forest needs new souls. It won't take the same blood twice. I can't stop it. I just survive it. Jake lunged forward and grabbed Derek by the collar, slamming him against the stone hearth. You son of a bitch, you're not walking out of here. Neither are you, Derek said quietly. Something moved upstairs. A soft creak, then another. Emma gasped. There's no one else up there. Jake turned toward the staircase, but no one was there. Then the front door blew open. The wind screamed in, carrying something with it. A shadow, tall. Too tall, its limbs spidered across the ceiling and walls like a parasite sliding through skin. Its eyes were glowing again, but now they had depth. Swirling pits of pale light, drawing everything toward them. Kevin fired. The bullet passed through it like mist. The creature jerked toward him in a blur. Kevin screamed as claws slashed across his chest. Blood sprayed across the wall as he was flung backward. The rifle skittered across the floor. Kevin! Emma screamed. Jake grabbed her and pulled her toward the back room. Go! Get inside! They fled down the hallway. Derek didn't move. He stood before the creature, hands open, eyes lowered. It's enough, he whispered. They know. The thing cocked its head, then vanished. The silence left behind was complete. Kevin lay dying, gasping through gurgled breaths. Emma crouched in the pantry with Jake, sobbing, the wooden walls pressing in around them. Jake held her, staring blankly at the darkness outside the slatted vents. We're not gonna make it, Emma whispered. Jake didn't answer. Down the hall, Derek moved slowly through the house. He picked up the fallen rifle and set it gently on the table. Then he began to hum, a low, tuneless sound, like a lullaby turned inside out. The wind outside had stilled. The forest waited. And then it began again. Footsteps. Not from the front door, not from the broken window, from inside the house. The pantry door rattled. Jake grabbed a kitchen knife, but it was barely the size of his forearm. Please, Emma whispered. Not like this. The door creaked open. It was Derek. Alone. He held up his hands. It's not me you have to fear." Jake lunged at him anyway, knife raised, but Derek stepped back calmly, letting the blade glance off his arm. "You're not listening," he said. "The offering isn't over. It won't stop until it's fed. And right now, you're all that's left." "Then why the hell are you still standing?" Jake growled. Derek tilted his head. "I made the pact." And then the creature appeared behind him. Just there. No footsteps. No warning. Like it had always been in the room, it reached past Derek and took Jake. It happened in a blur. A flash of claws, screams, blood. Then silence. Again. Derek looked at Emma. She was frozen. Her hands covered her mouth. Her legs had gone numb. "I'm sorry," he said. "You weren't meant to be here." Emma stared up at him. And then, suddenly, she moved, bolted for the back door, threw it open, and ran. Derek didn't chase. She ran into the forest, into the deep black of the hollow. The trees swallowed her in seconds. Behind her, no footsteps followed. She was alone. For a moment, she thought she had escaped. But then, the trees changed, bent inward, closed around her, and the ground beneath her cracked like dry bone, and something pulled her down. At sunrise, the forest was still again. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The lodge stood quiet, untouched. Derek stood in the porch, his coat pulled tight against the morning chill. He looked out over the tree line and nodded once. The creature watched from the trees, their pact renewed. Dawn. The fog curled low, hugging the ground like breath from something sleeping. The cabin was silent again. Still, the thing had returned to the hollow, satisfied for now. Inside, Derek moved quietly. No panic, no mourning, just habit. He cleaned the blood from the floor, straightened the chairs, covered the shattered window with plywood from the shed. He knew what had to be done. Kevin, Jake, Emma, they were gone. He lit the fire one last time, sat in the chair by the hearth, and wrote their names into the notebook. Then, without emotion, he turned to the back page and drew a single line beneath them. Offering accepted. He closed the book, wrapped it in oilskin, placed it under the floorboards with the others. Outside, the wind shifted. He looked toward the trees. The hollow was silent again. For now. 1 week later, he was back at his desk. Same chair, same bland cubicle walls. No one asked too many questions. The story always worked. Missing hikers, sudden storm, poor visibility. Search teams found nothing, as expected. By the end of the month, their names faded from office conversations like they'd never been there at all. Derek didn't grieve. He planned. In the mirror that night, he looked into his own eyes, He didn't flinch when the reflection behind him flickered, when the shape appeared just at the edge of glass, antlers like broken limbs, eyes like dying stars. He nodded. The forest would sleep for a while, months, maybe a year, but it always woke hungry, and he would be ready. Again. The van rumbled down the gravel road, tires crunching over the bones of fallen branches. In the back seat, laughter echoed, loud, careless, young. "Man, this place better have Wi-Fi," someone said. Derek smiled in the rear-view mirror. "Not even close," he said. "No signal." "That's the point." They groaned, laughing again. Beer cans clinked. Jokes about ghosts and bears flew freely. No one noticed the way the trees thickened, grew older, quieter, darker. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was nearly time. A few more turns and they'd cross the invisible threshold. The one he could feel, though no map showed it. The air would grow heavier. The forest would listen. And somewhere beneath all that green, the hollow would wake. Derek's smile faded as the trees closed in. Another fire, another night, another offering. He didn't enjoy it, but he was very, very good at it.